Hi, Acadiana. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. Welcome to the 4th of July. Hopefully you're having a great day so far, and hopefully you do have the day off. Again, it's a hot and humid one out there today, and we've had some scattered showers, some thunderstorms firing up. But it is a holiday, and we do have a lot to talk about here on Let's Talk Tropics. But I'm going to try to get through it as quickly as possible so that you can go off and enjoy your holiday, and I can too. Let's go ahead and start with the radar, and you can see that for those who are planning a lunchtime barbecue, you might be having some issues with some of the rain. We've got some moderate to heavy rains that are occurring here over parts of Landry and Evangeline parishes. And then if you've got some travel plans, maybe over toward Baton Rouge, the Basin Bridge isn't looking so hot either with those scattered showers and thunderstorms. But hopefully it'll get its act together, and we'll start to calm down. And by later this afternoon and this evening, we'll be able to get some of those fireworks displays going, and therefore we'll be able to enjoy some drier weather. But it is summertime. It is hot. Our latest check on our temperature here in Lafayette, 90 degrees with a 79-degree dew point, and that sets our heat index at 105. I was laughing because my boys live out on the West Coast in Southwest Oregon, and they're going to be experiencing temperatures at about 105 today, but because the humidity is so low, the heat index is only going to be 94. I had to text them today and say, guys, you really got to drink a lot of water because they work outside. I know they're Cajun kids and they're used to heat index values of 115 to 120, and it probably isn't going to feel so bad for them, but reminding them to drink plenty of water even though it is super hot and super dry out there. A quick look at the traffic cam showing mainly dry roadways, but I can see some rain off in the distance on that Henderson and Brobridge camera. So there will be some areas, as you saw there on the radar, with some widely scattered rain. So let's get right to it. Here is Hurricane Beryl, and some of the cameras, top left and top right, are both from the Cayman Islands. Of course, you've got a satellite image, bottom left there, of the hurricane itself. Bottom right is the flat bridge. That is actually right outside of Kingston, Jamaica. It is closed right now. They've got a lot of debris that came through. It's a very small bridge, and I was watching before the hurricane came in thinking, man, this is a little bitty bridge for such a large, highly traveled roadway in Jamaica. But then I also did some reading. It looks like that bridge goes all the way back to 1720. So I don't think this hurricane was going to really matter to the flat bridge there in Jamaica. But interesting to watch that. A lot of debris there, and they're trying to get that stuff out of there so they can get the road back open. But you can see that Hurricane Beryl has now moved away from Jamaica and is now moving over the Cayman Islands. Got a couple of satellite views here for you, and it almost looks like we're starting to see the eye reemerge on the visible satellite imagery. Recon's been out there, and they're finding a weakening hurricane due to some wind shear. They've even found the southern part of the eye wall is actually open now, and there's not a lot of convection to the south, so it's a very lopsided storm. Big difference from what we were looking at just a few days ago when it was a Category 5, almost a perfectly shaped storm over the eastern part of the Caribbean, and you can see that it is now heading toward the Yucatan. That's a good view of the Gulf of Mexico, where things are generally clear with the exception of some scattered showers and thunderstorms over us, but that hurricane is going to continue to push off toward the west, and it's going to be making its way over toward the Yucatan Peninsula sometime early tomorrow morning. But as I've said, the Recon has been out there, and they're finding a more ragged storm, and a lot of that is due to the wind shear, and it's still in a very high wind shear environment here to the north and west of the hurricane itself, and it does look like it's going to be encountering wind shear here as it moves over toward the Yucatan Peninsula. And then we'll talk about the further the track that the forecast track rather that goes across the Yucatan and over into the Gulf of Mexico. And with that, we might be able to see the possibility of some weakening. I'd love to see this telestrator actually work for once. There we go. Moving across the Yucatan and then possibly emerging as a tropical storm, but got some models that are showing that it could re-intensify to a hurricane before hitting the west coast of the Gulf of Mexico. Far from Acadiana, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some minor coastal flooding, and then as this gets absorbed into the westerlies over the U.S. early next week, it should probably bring us a better chance for rain. But there's a look at the position right now. This was as of the 10 o'clock advisory. It is still a major hurricane, a Category 3 with winds at 115 miles per hour, 19 degrees north, 82.6 west. Pressure is up to 971 millibars, and there is the official track from the National Hurricane Center. I know a lot of folks were looking at models and things, sweeping their way back in this direction, but I will let you know about 3/4 of all of the hurricane forecast cones, the center of the hurricane stays within the cone about 75% of the time. And if you want to take a look, I put a link in the description of all of the hurricane advisories from the National Hurricane Center going all the way back to 1998, and all the cones are there. And you can see, even though there are some hurricanes that do kind of shift maybe to the outside of the envelope every once in a while, most of the time the center of circulation ends up staying within the cone. So we are in good shape. We have never been in the cone, and I don't think we're ever going to get in the cone as we go through the next couple of days. Check out these models though. These are the track models, and I put up the intensity, and we're going to go over some of the intensity stuff here in a little bit. But it looks like as it makes its way to the Yucatan, it will strike as a hurricane, and then most models have it coming out as a tropical storm. Just about everything is concentrating now on deep South Texas and northern Mexico, and there are some of the different models and what they're suggesting for a coastal hit here coming up early Sunday into early Monday morning. GFS is going with a tropical storm, Euro, HWRF halves, and the HMON all going with a hurricane, Category 1 by the way, and the Canadian model is going with a tropical storm at landfall. So it looks like it will get a chance to re-intensify. Some of the hurricane-specific models, the GFS, was not available this morning, so the GFS tropical storm, that's basically based on the global model and what I was seeing with the models that ran yesterday. Here is a look at the model intensity guidance, and you can see that everything up here in that Cat 2, Cat 3 here as it reaches the Yucatan. Then as we get into this period right here, 36 hours from now, this is where it would generally be over land. Some keep it as a hurricane moving over land. Most drop it down to a tropical storm and keep it there all the way to about day 3. Some of them do have some intensification, just a little bit maybe here, tropical storm to borderline hurricane. With the other models that are staying with a hurricane, just kind of keep it there for the next several days, and a much slower movement on these 3, because that right there is day 7. This is day 6, this is day 5, day 4, 3, and 2. So just to give you an idea of the time, and then of course the wind speeds here, tropical storm, Category 1, Category 2, Category 3. So most keep it as a Cat 1, Cat 2 up to landfall over the Yucatan Peninsula. They have it reemerge. Most of the models are reemerging it as a tropical storm. Some keep it as a hurricane. And then most run it back up to a hurricane at landfall here sometime over the Texas coast. But there are several that do keep it a tropical storm. So we'll pretty much go with high-end tropical storm, low-end hurricane for a landfall along the Gulf of Mexico's coast on the west side. There's a look at some of the GFS ensembles, and again, there is a little bit of a spread. You get one particular line that wants to follow toward Louisiana like a magnet, but what we concentrate on is where the consensus of the models are, and that's why the forecast track looks like that. And the same thing goes with the JEPs. Nothing really heading in our direction, pretty much everything looking at the upper Mexican and lower parts of the Texas coast. And I did want to show you the shear map going out into late Sunday as the hurricane approaches. This is the GFS model, global model, so it is calling for a tropical storm here, but you can see that it is going to be encountering quite a bit of wind shear on the western side. So that shear that's over here right now is basically just going to kind of roll in tandem with the tropical system. So it will be battling some shear at least for the next 2 to 3 days. As far as the upper level pattern, and this is what a lot of folks have been talking about, the trough that's going to dig here. And I'll tell you, it's a little unusual to see this large of a trough during the month of July that would send a cold front farther to the south. But it is not as strong as some of the bigger fronts that you start to see mid-September and going into October that really pick things up and shoot them out off toward the northeast quickly. So we do think the trough is going to be here, but we don't think it's going to be quick enough to be able to pull it up and move it eastward in our direction. What I do think is it's going to go ahead and move inland over the Rio Grande Valley, and then the remnants of it will start to slide this way. That would bring a pretty good onshore flow to parts of the Gulf of Mexico. So At the very least, we will see some minor coastal flooding, and there will be increased rain chances as we head into the weekend and especially into the early part of next week. Good news is, though, with the extra clouds out there, that should keep our temperatures down. But with a number of days of rain, there could be several inches coming down. I've seen some models that show 5 to 7 inches of rain over the Acadiana area, but that's between now and Wednesday of next week. So an inch a day, most of us can handle that without any big time flooding. So let's go through the individual models. And again, the GFS, I got to run this one from late last night because the one from this morning was not available. But a 994 tropical storm, most likely for that. There are some tropical storm force winds that are thrown into that particular model. The Euro model is quite a bit more intense, and it's starting to borderline on some of those hurricane winds on the top. Pressure there is 979, and you can see that this is moving a little bit closer to the Mexican coastline, while as we looked at the GFS earlier, it was a little bit closer to the southern tip of Texas. Brownsville right about in here, that's the Rio Grande Valley right there. Texas coast, Mexican coast. So that's making the beeline basically for the mouth of the Rio Grande River. The HWRF is a lot more intense compared to the other ones, but it kind of splits the difference between the GFS that was over here and the Euro that was over here. But notice it is a lot stronger of a system based on the HWRF. It does have hurricane force winds. That's the purple there on the right-hand side, which is always the strongest side of a hurricane. So the HWRF is going with hurricane, and it looks like the HAFS model is pretty much going with a hurricane as well, or at least getting close to some hurricane force winds on this side, but it is very, very close to the HWRF model with a coastline, a Mexican hit rather than a Texan hit. So as we review, we've got the GFS that's right about here. You got the Euro that's right about there. You got the HWRF that was over in this area, or the Euro was down here in this area, and of course the HAFS model is right about here. So they're all going with about a difference of 150 miles, which is basically within the margin of error of a day 5 cone from the National Hurricane Center. So minimal effects for us. There could be some coastal flooding from Grand Isle to Cameron and then down to around the point. You might see some higher water levels in some of the canals like the Delcambre Canal. And then rainfall is going to be a better chance as we get into the extended forecast. So what else is out there? Really not a whole lot. We've got disturbance 96L that is still moving into the Caribbean Sea right here. It has a low chance for development over the next 7 days as it cruises its way off to the west, basically in the same track as Hurricane Beryl has done. The water temperatures are there to support 96L as well as the tropical cyclone heat potential, which is how deep those 80-degree waters go, and pretty much going all the way across the Caribbean Sea. This is where 96L is right now. It's going to travel this way and continue to move across the Yucatan Peninsula. So there's some high heat content, but I do believe there's going to be a little bit of shear, and we've also seen some Saharan dust. We did have wave that came off the African coast. Lots of Saharan dust out here. The wave just really kind of wide open, doesn't look too interesting, and that Saharan dust kind of wraps around the front of it as well. As we look at the middle part of the Atlantic Ocean, you've got the hurricane, you've got Beryl right here, you got 96L right here, and then there is that tropical wave we talked about. But look at all the Saharan dust and dry air there. So nothing is going to happen, at least in the central and western part of the Atlantic over the next couple of days. And a lot of that has to do with the Saharan dust that's there. And you can see it really concentrates here over the western part of the Atlantic. There's that tropical wave right there. All that dry air and dust is right there, and that is going to inhibit any development there. So the only game in town besides Beryl, I think, is going to be 96L, and it has a low-end chance, but of course we will keep an eye on that. So that's really all I got for you today. I don't think Beryl's going to bother us too much, but we will watch it. And of course, I've got links to those webcams down in the bottom in the description, as well as if you want to go back and look at some of your favorite hurricane tracks over the past 24, 25 years or so. Those are included in the description below. I really hope you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics. I know I enjoy having our lunchtime visits each and every day. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you turn on those notifications as well. Not going to take the day off tomorrow either. either. I will be back for Acadiana weather today sometime between 7:30 and 8, and we will do another live stream on Let's Talk Tropics tomorrow at noon. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Have a great Independence Day. Keep it safe and make sure you drink plenty of fluids and stay cool and enjoy your day off. I'll see you tomorrow.